some of the local, IT security talent in the area, not to be full-fledged professors, but, hey, once,
guest lecturers.
be a guest lecturer. In this part of the class, we're going to bring, somebody from whether it be TI or, American Airlines or BNSF Railroad, and say we're going to bring that guy in and have him talk about some real-world projects that they're working on and issues.
And one of the other things we've run into is the issue of like internships and putting students out on internships. It's difficult to put a student on a security internship, because either they're kind of on the peripheral and they really don't get to really see how the security works, or if the company does bring them in, the company concern is that we're exposing this person to secure data, secure issues, and how do you ensure that that student is not going to is going to maintain the level of security that you would maintain with a full-time employee.
Right.
So does TI do anything in terms of internships and stuff in the security area, or is that just kind of not going to happen because of the security concerns that you have?
Historically, it was a no, we're not going to go there. But we've done it about once or twice now, where we've brought some co-ops in to work on different projects. Because again, we recognize that we need to start building that pipeline. Again, the other area where we do it is if they bring a co-op into, again, the database team, can we assign them to a security type project where we help improve the level of database security? So even though they're embedded with the database team, the tasks that they're working on are security specific. Right. So that tends to be more hands-on implementation based, less strategy, risk management based. But it gives them that foundation.
Do you find that foundation, do you find that that's a good additive in terms of being able to hire the student at a later date when they graduate? Or, I mean, asking the TI.
Absolutely. Because again, our expectation is, you're going to be an ethical employee and you're going to protect the information. And if you can demonstrate that you've got some prior training and some prior experience in that area on top of, your core skill set, I mean, that's a big win, right? Security, as well as, again, the ability to communicate, whether it's written or oral, is another key skill set. It's one thing to know all the technology, but can you verbalize your concerns or the use case or the benefit?
All right, I'm going to switch gears with you. We got a little bit of time left before we open it up for questions, and I know y'all want to ask a lot of questions, so I want to get to those. But I want to finish with this. You made a comment, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to try this one, okay? You made a comment that consumer products, right, that consumer products lack security, or if they have security, they're extremely hard to use. And because of that, and because of the expansion of chips into everything from automobiles to blenders, that presents a huge security issue. That's this security tidal wave, if you will, that's coming, right? So talk a little bit about that and where is that? Why is that why would you make that statement, I guess, is the question I'm asking you. What is the concern there that you see?
So again, I think the concern I see is even if you want to be security conscious or protect your data, you've got to go through a lot of effort to do that. A great example is if you think back a few years when the iPhones were first coming out or the first iPad, it had the capability to do encryption, but was it turned on?
No.
No. You had to go through the settings and configurations and find the encryption option and turn it on yourself. So why is that? How hard would it have been to turn that on right out of the box? I consider myself to be pretty computer savvy, but trying to figure out Facebook privacy settings, and if I click this button, am I sharing with my friends, or is that really sharing with everybody, is crazy. Now, how is my poor mom going to figure that out?
Right.
And then again, so I think that's what I'm driving at is a lot of these consumer-based products, they're not made for the corporate environment from a security standpoint. And then how do you make it easy for your average citizen who, they're concerned about keeping their stuff private and secret. How do you make it easy for them to do that?
Okay, so let me ask you this then. Okay, so TI, do you vet all the coffee makers in TI?
coffee makers?
Yeah, because,
No.
okay, because I'm asking because there's chips in them, right?
Right.
And there's actually a wireless coffee maker now.
But if
where
it
you
tried-
can use your iPhone app to turn your coffee maker on.
Right.
So if I have one of the wireless coffee makers and I bring it to my office at TI, and then I use my iPhone to go ahead and turn my coffee maker on at TI, have I violated security? Am I going to jail?
You violated probably facilities rules about having a coffee maker in your cubicle, but if that tries to talk out through our internet gateway, I'll know it.
Yeah.
So again, there's a situation where, when you think about how, these hacks are carried out, they got to get in, they got to get to the right spot, they got to get the data, then they got to get the data out. And anywhere along that chain can I disrupt that, that attack. And so sometimes I'm not stopping you from getting in, but I'm going to catch you when you try to take it out.
Right.
And we do the same thing with copiers. Copiers now come with hard drives and things
Right.
like that. So yes, setting up that the hard drive deletes every hour, and that if it is trying to talk out to the internet, we've got our list of IPs that we know that should be talking out, and we'll go and investigate it.
And I think
something
that's,
weird's happening.
to me, that's really where the future of this is going to go. Because when we talk about bring your own device, and this is really interesting, people talk about so we talk about bring your own device. It's not, most of us, when you say BYOD, we think, well, that's cell phone, that's iPad, that's it. But really and truly, it's that wireless coffee maker. It's that, it's that hard drive that's built into your automobile. It's that copier that's got wireless capabilities. Every device that has internet capability, if you bring it anywhere around, is now a bring your own device. And so we're trying to make your hair turn gray. You've been there for 21 years. We got to get you some gray hair here.
Man, what if your dentist or your doctor had his bring your own device policy? Wouldn't that be scary?
That'd be beautiful.
Dentist bringing his own drill from home, his own scalpel, but yeah, we do that in technology. I don't understand.
So the goal here,
not a big fan of the BYOD. Because again, go back to the privacy thing. So it's your phone. Did you pay for it? Did the company pay for it?
Right.
Are you paying for the plan, or is the company paying for the plan? If I wipe the device and your tax return was on it, am I liable, or is that your fault? And if I get you to sign a waiver saying you won't hold me liable, will that hold up in court? And you go ask these things to the lawyers, and they're like, yeah, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Because again, there's no case law, there's nothing that really drives that.
And you're absolutely right. And that's one of the most critical things out there. Is it just isn't, the law is not up to speed with where we are, and it doesn't appear that it's going to catch up either. I mean, the stuff that's coming out is not realistic in terms of implementation. I understand the law, I understand the logic behind what they're trying to do, but the implementation-wise is going to be impossible. So from your standpoint then, just kind of wrap up here and we'll open it up for questions. The issue really comes down from a security standpoint of all through the value chain, from original equipment, regardless of who that is, wherever that occurs, to that end user, that consumer that's using the device. There's got to be a touch point of security throughout the entire thing. Is that fair?
That is fair. And then, we look at it from 3 points of view, and it's protect, detect, react. So can I protect that device? Can I protect that data? If I can't protect it to the level that I want, can I detect if something bad happens and recognize that something abnormal or weird is happening? And then the third piece is, how do I react to that? Do I shut off the connection? Do I fire off alarms and warning bells? Do I just stick it in a log file and create a weekly report? I mean, all three of those elements work together. We often sometimes get so hung up on it, well, I can't protect against that, or I can't stop that, so we just throw up our hands and think we're stuck. Right. But there's other things you can do to minimize it. So.
Outstanding. Well, with that, we're going to turn around and open it up to questions. So I appreciate you letting me monopolize your time for a little while. We have a couple of microphones over here. So if you'll just raise your hand, they'll come around and give you a microphone. In the interest of time, if you would, ask your question, and we'll kind of get around to everyone, and we'll come back to you for a second question if you have one. So.
Well, Mike's not a question. From the legal aspect of things, law is coming along. But, that's the whole purpose of an employee handbook. And,
right.
the company has to be protected more than anything else, and that's I'm just wanting to point out that there are protection mechanisms for companies, okay? I've sat through many lawyers trying to deal with these issues, but we're back to the compromise between personal freedom been a part of, and I've been a part of, but I think the students need to be more involved. And part of the reason why I came, sorry, I'm on my soapbox, Brian, but is to get them more involved into other areas like law from a security perspective, like if they're interested in that, from a technology perspective. So that's why I came, is I wanted to make sure that they thought out of the box as far as security, and you brought up all these different devices. Okay, are you going to go to work for a manufacturer? Okay, are you testing for vulnerabilities? So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Okay, and your comments are great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Are we over here? In the back here.
So Brian, real simple, what do you tell your employees when they're at the airport lounge in Russia using the public desktop computer, or they're in China sitting at Starbucks with their iPad, or they have their Bluetooth and they're sending an acquisition approval notice? Can they do that stuff, or do they have to wait till they go someplace else because they don't necessarily know all the security terms, they don't know if it's been activated, probably don't care, but they would like to know what you want them to do or not do as it relates to Bluetooth, iPad, and somebody else's desktop computer.
Right. So from an awareness standpoint, we configure our corporate devices in such a way that we turn off things like Bluetooth and all that. If you're using your own device, then we have awareness campaigns. We hold little sessions at the various sites to say, if you're going to use your own iPad, that's great. Here's how you can set up to be secure as the one at work. So we try to get out in front of our engineers and show them that information, or hey, bring it to the cafeteria on Wednesdays, and we'll set it up for you. So we do those types of campaigns. And then we try to educate them that if you're going to do anything remotely, do it when you're in a VPN tunnel to TI. Right? You got that nice encrypted tunnel to TI, and you're connected to TI. We allow you to send personal emails from work, again, to get around that. So you don't feel like, oh, I just got to connect to this hotspot because I want to send an email to my wife. No, you can do that from work. But now that's encrypted and that's protected. So we try to do that. And then, back to the comment you made, yeah, we're starting to realize that, there's probably some things that we just need to have conversations over the phone. They don't need to happen through instant messaging and through email. And so we're getting much stricter about things like M&A information sharing, where that's just not something we want to carry on through this medium, whether it's IM or chat or whatever. And people are starting to understand it. They're starting to come around to that.
And I think one of the critical things there is, recognize that 97% of all breaches are behavioral. It is absolutely critical. And that's something that, it was an astounding thing that came out in a report about 3 years ago. It was called the Black Book Report from Verizon and the Secret Service, that 97% of all breaches are behavioral. Yet the bulk of money at that point in time was being spent on technological solutions. Well, the reality is that if I'm at the Admirals Club in Russia, right, and I know I have a report that's due and I need to get it in, or I'm going to get raked over the coals by my boss, I'm going to send a report, right? And if the security that I need to do it is not there, then I'm going to develop a workaround, because I'm smart enough to know how to do that, and I'm going to figure out how to get it there. And I'm not going to worry about the security, because behaviorally, I know that if I don't get that report in, I'm going to be in trouble. So what we're seeing, and what Brian's talking about now, what we've been working on for the last couple of years, is really to get that training component in place, to get cultural awareness that, when you sit down in a hotel room and it's got wireless internet, you don't just open up your computer and start doing whatever you want to do. You do set up that VPN first, and then you go through that. And in most cases, like, my notebook's a good example. I travel for the university. I arrive at a hotel. The first thing I do is hit the VPN button on my desktop. It connects to a VPN at UT Dallas, and then I go where I need to go. Just getting that little bit of behavioral modification right there can do tremendous things in terms of security. We have a question over here.
You touched on this a little bit when you talked about Dropbox and some of the consumer apps that function on cloud computing, but even on a business level, you're seeing an increasing transition towards things like, Salesforce and Amazon Web Services, essentially a database outsourcing. You're having cloud providers do a lot of things that would have previously been done in-house. Mm-hmm. So from a corporate IT perspective, what challenges and opportunities does this present?
So I think it depends on the size and maturity of your IT. So in our case, we've been around 85 years. A lot of that functionality and capability we've already built. And not only have we built it inside of TI, but we've already integrated it into the manufacturing flow and the back-end reporting. So going to a cloud provider really doesn't save us money because I have to rip out all that integration and reintegrate it to Salesforce. So there's not a strong business case for it. But if you're a smaller company who you don't have all that infrastructure already and you don't have a team of 15 dedicated, that actually is probably not a bad investment to go. Right? You're probably more secure going to a company like that than you would be trying to have some guy who's trying to play 4 different roles, develop that and secure it for you. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're seeing from a cloud standpoint. What complicates it is back to some of these laws. EU data has to stay in the EU, but the cloud provider has a really good data center in Singapore. Really? I got to go figure that one out? So that's where it gets. And again, there's why? If they can prove it's secure, does it really matter that the database is there versus there?
Well, I think that's absolutely critical. And it's everything. You think about it, the whole internet really based on this concept of outsourcing. But that creates vulnerabilities. So GoDaddy gets hit with a denial of service attack, and we've got 12 million small businesses that don't have a website for 24 hours. Now, does that mean you should go out and put your own server in your garage and run your own website? And the answer is probably no. But the reality is that it is a trade-off. It is a business decision that you have to make on where your security is going to lie. And if you are a small business, then there are, for minimal investments, you can get security that's far beyond what you can do as a small business. Most of us can do as a small business. And it's more cost-effective. But as you grow, that's part of what you have to look at. And you have to make that strategic component of security has got to come into play in terms of what you're going to spend and where you're going to spend and what the benefits are that you're going to get from it.
Cloud makes life very complicated too. So one of my jobs inside of TI is internal corporate investigations. So we do investigations, lawsuit, e-discovery, all that. When you have a cloud environment, that's really hard because sometimes I really rely on those system logs and other things to build my case. I may or may not get those from the cloud provider, or they may not want to provide them to me because they're mixed in with a bunch of other logs from other companies. So there's things like that you wouldn't think about when you go to a cloud provider that you need to consider.
Yeah, and it gets really interesting when you start talking about internal clouds, external clouds, hybrid clouds. They all sound real sexy. Don't get me wrong, right? They all sound real sexy, and everybody wants to get involved in them. But from a security standpoint, they become a real nightmare to have to deal with. I think we had another question back here.
Sorry, I got one more. Brian, earlier, it seems like everybody's holding you accountable to what you said. Earlier you said that most of those laws as far as global regulation and security are up to interpretation. So it depends on your corporate attorney, how he identifies it. Maybe he looks at it as, oh, it's good to know that. Or maybe like, whoa, I got to modify everything and I got to hire 10 more people.
Right.
How does the enforcement of those laws compare to the interpretation? Like, how do you prevent from that? And
question.
not so much of at an international level, because, I mean, at least my involvement is more domestically.
So a couple ways that we do it. So TI, philosophically, ethically, we want to do what's right, do what's best. And if it's a law in this country and this other country, the law is not at the same level, then we apply everything globally to that highest standard. And then that way, there's never any discrepancy or debate. It's whatever the highest standard is, that's what we want to achieve regardless. And then the other thing, and it's settings like this, and again, talking to other security professionals is trying to understand what they're doing. How is Microsoft and Kodak and some of these other companies, how are they interpreting it? What are they doing to comply with some of these laws so that we can understand, am I in the same ballpark as everybody else, or am I way, way out in left field from a regulatory interpretation standpoint?
And I will tell you, I'll take a little bit different perspective on it because I do a fair amount of expert witness work from technology standpoints, and it's really interesting to sit with the attorneys from the different groups and talk to them about where they're coming from. And unlike a lot of expert witness work where you just go in and you're a hired gun working for one attorney, a lot of